This will be, I'm going to try and record this, so for those that can't hear or can't make it, I'll make it available. So I'll send it somehow to Clinton, and then Clinton will hopefully put through your internal system as required. So these are the sort of things we're going to try and go through, basically finding elements, information quantities, control modelling, project QA, using material schedules and calculations in schedules. And then we'll have a little play just in BIMLink. Like we could talk for hours on BIMLink on its own, but we'll just sort of touch on just a few of those items as there. First one, basically when you can't find a member. Like I often use Revit for this case as an example. So, in this case here, it's got a sample project. If for some reason I had a certain column number, like on a very large project, so if I go down to, say if I've got a structural column schedule, which is this one here, in the schedule here using mark, whatever the setup is, but I can use it to go, well, where is my mark number CC1? So between using split view, so that's using the tile windows, setting up like a 3D view, and then having a schedule. You can use basically use schedules to help you find your element as you need to. So very handy for probably missing steelwork, depending if you do individual mark numbering or type numbering. Another sort of important information with schedules is, as I alluded to, a lot of people sort of just put, when they're creating their sheets, they might sort of have a schedule and then they might just throw one schedule on just to tell that story. But you can use schedules for preliminary information and just to help sort of the process throughout the construction stage. My previous company we used to work, we used to do a lot of preliminary schedules to help a quantity surveyor. So in this example here, for example, like level 1. So in this, so this is all to do, say a preliminary, forget about the level 1. So, I often would create, say, a schedule that would talk about the overall job. Talks about the floors, might talk about the columns, might talk about foundations, then might talk about framing, then might talk about walls. And then depending on what you need to, sort of what information you need to share, you may, with concrete strengths, add RIO rates. You might, even having the count. Quantity surveyors who use Costex or other quantity surveying programs, they put it through their schedules, and sometimes, it's a good check for them to know that, okay, well, in my structural concrete columns, the 450 diameters, I've got, 376 of them. So when they put it in through their program, if all of a sudden they've only got 350, then at least they've got a bit of a chance to catch it or question it. Now, obviously, it could also, there could be modelling errors within our Revit job here. We might have a column in a column, so therefore that would go 377. So, but at least it's a sort of start point using schedules for information. Continuing on with that, obviously with the quantities component, in this example here, or I'll get up another one, say I always use material takeoff, which I'll talk about more soon, that, calculating actual quantities. You might have certain sizes, but working out, the volumes of possibly all the 750 diameter concrete columns. Will give you X amount of trucks of concrete. And then obviously if you apply the RIO rate to that, you can work out a tonnage of reinforcement. So again, the quantities component for the QS, but also for your own internal check, knowing if you ever get that query from site, how much tonnages of reinforcement was used, you can very quickly work out what it should have been. So, which we're going to do, we'll do a few calculations soon. So. Okay. Another very handy thing with schedules is how I've said you can find elements. Knowing Revit's basically a database, and schedules are essentially reading that database. That makes good, to me, it makes good common sense that rather than selecting individual elements, in this example here, if I was going around and selecting individual piles and going to my properties, I would then go and alter different values, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Right down to different column sizes. I could instantly pick a column and change it to a 750. So doing that in a large project, could be, as I said, as simple as columns or piles. It does get a bit tedious. Or you can start using your schedules. For example, columns. So if I want to change, for example, all my 450 diameter columns in one go, again, I could drop down and change one and individually, or I could very quickly modify my schedule as an example. Oops. So I've got all my 450s here. I now can drop that down and in one go change them to be 750. And as you can see, it's processing. So there's 186 different elements to be changed. And there's my columns all changed in one go. So then I could very quickly switch back over, and I knew 90% had to go to the 450 to the 750. I would very quickly come back, change that back to itemise, go and change my CC1, which I knew had to be a certain size, as an example, and I could quickly change that one back to 450. So that's using basically schedules to help you, fill out the data. Doing depths and whatnot, are a classic. Whenever you got the common things. So the trick out of that I find is just making sure within schedules, either have a completed schedule, which is the one that may be going on the sheet. Don't be afraid to duplicate. Rename that. Even just call that one, say, working, as an example. Working structural. So that working might mean that it is itemise everything according to what you need. And then the final one, for the actual one that's going to land on the sheet, you could put that, call this one sheet version. Just as a temporary, just say your browser's getting organised, and then you can adjust your sorting and grouping. We can go type as first, and then we might go to mark as next, and then we might go to base level as next. And then you're starting with that, and then you can basically say, well, base level, I might want to split that off and starts to break it up. So that might be my final schedule that would be going on the sheet. Okay, another very handy tip, again with the schedule part, is what I call QA checking. So everyone can make errors, so it makes good common sense if we can try and use the power of Revit to help reduce those errors. So if I go to my, in this case here, working column schedule, okay. If, for example, all my 750 diameters had to be at 200 kilograms per metre squared, and for some reason there was a typo of 20. Okay. Very hard to pick up manually going around one by one to know that that was typed in as 20. So what you can do within Revit is, create yourself, you could make a duplicate of this. Again, so I could go duplicate, and I might put this one in. This one is called QA check, structural column schedule. So under basically, once I've got all my items laid out as I wish, under formatting, for example, if I was doing a QA checking of RIO rate, I'd need to go to RIO rate. Now, under the formatting tab, there's one here called conditional formatting. If I select conditional formatting, and I can do basically what talks about as a conditional test. So in this example, RIO rate. If I want to make RIO rate tell me where it is less than a value of 200 and mark it red. And OK. And now I might go, well, let's do another one. So conditional mark, equals to, and basically where it say does not equal to, for example, NCC1, and change that to be, say, blue. Oops. There we go. Well, I'll do equal rather than not equal. So you can use this very quickly to identify it. Now, just one thing to know about this is, yes, that's beautiful red, beautiful blue. If I put this on a sheet, ignoring that there it is there. Notice the colours aren't coming through. Okay, so it's only a visual representation, okay, within the schedule. So unfortunately, and I don't know if it's been changed for 2013, unfortunately you just need to basically just check it within Revit. You can't spit it out for the engineers or someone else to check as yet. Everything. Okay, material schedules. Basically, material schedules sort of work very similar to a normal schedule, as you can sort of see here on the PowerPoint. It just comes up with all the material options, which basically sort of sit in there. So it's identical, you just get additional, basically, help options in there. So, and I use probably a lot more material schedules than normal schedules, and the reason is it sort of helps me allow to filter things out. So in this example, if I go to, say, columns, so grab new column schedule. Everyone's aware, right-click your schedule. I'll go new. So over here, I know for a fact I've got some steel columns. Okay, and I know I've got some concrete columns. So if I go new material takeoff, and I'm just going to do structural columns. Now the trick is material takeoff or material schedule. You have to have at least one material name to make this work. So if I do material name, and then I might do type, and then I might do counts as an example, and OK. Okay, so we can see all the different types, and you should see in here some steel ones. So this will allow me now to go material name, and if I do contains, as an example, steel. Now it is case sensitive, so as you see, it's the way you need to type it. So if I do contains, so all of a sudden I've now got basically this one called structural material or structural steel columns. Steel columns. And then if I want to do one for the concrete columns, again I would duplicate and I'd go structural concrete columns. And I'd go to my filter and do does not contain, and it should swap them over. And then I can do my green totals of, say, material name, and if I do green totals, and starts to group them up accordingly. So that's using the material names. Calculations within schedules. Just because what it spits out doesn't mean you can't add additional information to help you sort of explain what you need to do. You know, in this example here, say REO rate or volume. You know, and we can use the parameters that we have used, and so therefore it's just basically the simple maths within Revit. So in this example here, say if I want to do columns, yep, I go material takeoff. I'll dig into this one. Now, just a tip is obviously depending how you set up your projects. You know, I've got parameters in here. Some might be shared parameters, some might be project parameters. Okay, so depending on what you do, you can obviously add a parameter that will take you to either shared or project as you wish. Now, in this case here, so I've got concrete strength, which I've filled out, which is fine. So if I go to, and I'm going to go and work out, say, my REO quantity and edit. So you can see here REO quantity is using a parameter called REO rate times material volume, and then gives me a value as required. And when you're doing these, you know, at least now with the newer version Revit, it basically opens up whatever fields you've got. So gone are the days of the incorrect spelling and it never worked. So it's now just a matter of basically select one as you go and then times divided by whatever it needs to be. Now, just with obviously working out correct quantities, sometimes they might be cubic meters or whatever it may be, say material volume. If I go material volume, under field format, okay, it basically brings you back to your project settings. So if I just quickly jump out of that, if I go up to manage project units, okay, so that's basically my current settings I use for my job. So volume might be cubic meters or squares, whatever it needs to be, but more importantly is the number of decimal places. So at any basically by unticking use project settings, and then you have full control. So in this case here, if I wanted to custom, and if I want to round it up to the nearest one value, whole number, and that should change accordingly. Okay, so you can do those sort of things within the formatting part. Just another tip on some of these is, if you want to just call this as an example volume, and it might be say cubic meters. Now to get the little tree, I think it's Alt 0178. Oops, that's Alt number pad 0179. Will give you the little cube. So just like you can do for character text within Revit, you can also do this within the schedules, because there are at stages that you may not want to say that, say cubic meters. So you can come back to volume, field format, and you might have none, as an example. Okay. Okay, so that's, before I go on the BIM link, I'll just run through a couple extra little things which I haven't added in the slides. Just think it might be handy to know. Obviously with any schedules, say for example, this sort of information talk about rank, REO rating, concrete strength. You can select these two schedules, and then what you can do is basically put a group of a header. Okay, and you can call this, as an example, structural information. Okay, so you can sort of do that sort of customization. If I go to a drawing list, if I go create a new schedule, say new sheet list, say sheet number, sheet name, as an example. Okay, so I've got my current 3 sheets. If I go in here and then just go new, as an example, new. So they're all, and I could go and fill that out to be sheet 1, sheet 2, etc. So then when I go and create my new sheets, they will sit here ready. So you can, if you have a situation of a specific project and need certain numbers and certain names, you can have it all pre-set up. So then the end users can come in and they can just go new sheet, they know which one it is, and then go, okay, the sheet's created, and then takes that guess out of it. And the tip is obviously when we're going to do BIM link, I'll show you then how we can sort of modify that quickly. So that's a couple extra things just to do with schedules. Okay, BIM link. So the idea of BIM link, it's basically the missing link between Revit and Excel. It's not dynamic, so it's like a two-way link, so push-pull. So you sort of export it, do it within Excel, and then once you've done, and then you import it from Excel back into Revit. So so it's pretty good. Like ultimately maybe one day it'll be a direct link, but at least it's a start point. So I'll just run through a few sort of simple examples of what we can do with BIM link, and then hopefully you'll see the power of basically why you need it to sort of make your life a bit easier. So in this example here, we can use it as simple as, we can access things that basically a schedule can't. That's probably one of the critical things to remember. So for example, Okay, so we've got some levels in here, floor, sub-level, etc. So it should be a matter of going bin link, create a new link. Okay, so running through the process, so it's just creating a new link, and then all of a sudden you've got options similar like you do for schedules, except you usually got a few more. So in this case here, we could break it down. I always go all categories. You can sort of reduce the options, but in this case here we might go, say, levels as an example. So if I call that levels, called levels 2, so I already had one. So all of a sudden, every element has an ID number. Okay, you can't change it, right? So that stays as it is. We might have one that's then called name and then elevation, so you can sort of see what it's doing. So 01 entry, 0, 3800, 7600. Okay, roof, there's further ones up there. If I go OK on that and I'm happy with that information, I'll then export that, called levels 2. Okay. Tip is you have to close it down, open up Excel. If I go to levels 2, okay, so here's my data. See how that's grayed out, right? So don't play with the ID information. Okay, but in this case here, what we can do now is, a couple of things. We could go, well, that all needs to be, say, uppercase, for some example. It might be your company standard. So we can use, so basically what you need to do is, if I Control-C, if I now just paste a special, always paste the values. Okay, you don't want equals. You don't want to go that cell equals that cell. And if I use the functions within Revit, one might be called upper, so it converts text string to all uppercase. So if I go upper, and then it might be that, okay, and then I might just drag them down so that all looks in capitals. I would then select those. Okay, at the moment they've got formulas, so I will go Control-C. I will then go paste special values, and that updates, and I'm happy with that. So I might just get rid of those cells, happy with that. Now all of a sudden you could possibly, if you wanted to, not that you would, possibly change the value of the elevation here. So say that's 3950. Okay, save that. Back in Excel, bin link, import, level 2. Okay, so it's running through the database at the moment, as you can see down the bottom. Okay, so it's basically telling us there's some errors, okay, which it's essentially saying, hang on, I can't rename my levels. But all of a sudden it's saying, well, I've got 5 errors, but I can do that value there. So if I go import, okay, so it should have all of a sudden changed that to be 3950 as a value. Now that hasn't changed that there, but that's fine because we can at a later date to do with basically naming of levels and how it lands on the sheet, because that could be non-case sensitive as it is. So that's one example of just using the bin link part. Another way, obviously, using Excel, you can sort of calculate additional information that schedules can't do. So in the example here, you can see on the screen. So basically, we can get the pile depth, but bottom of the pile might be a bottom pile RL, and that might be relative to a certain floor level. So if I went and found a foundation, okay, so if I'm going to do, for example here, I want to make one, say, called skin friction, as an example. So if I was going to go to fields, at the moment there's none there called skin friction, so I might just add a project parameter, call that skin friction. Depth. Now I'm going to set this up so, say if it's always, skin friction is always half the pile length, and I'm going to go OK. Right, so all of a sudden I've got no values. Now the last thing I have to do is go and fill out each individual one. So what we can do now, I go back to bin link, create new, structural foundation. Okay, so if I get some pile depths, so if I go skin friction, there it is, as an example, and go, yep, export that, structural foundations 2, close down, open Excel, open, structural foundations. Okay, so now if I agree here, skin friction is always, say, half of the pile depth. So really that cell equals that times 0.5, so it gives me a value. So if I went and filled these all out, so I'll drag, these are all my piles, my entire job. Okay, so I've got all my values, happy with that. Copy, paste special, values, okay, save. What I'll do, I'll open up schedules at the same time. Import, structural foundation. Okay, there's no errors, so it's found some values. If I now go import, and okay, and there's all my skin frictions filled out. You know, so you could use that to the point of basically giving that Excel spreadsheet to an engineer. Now you could have your individual pile mark numbers, P1, P2, P3. You could then go along and enter specific values accordingly. Okay, renaming the views. Okay, making it case sensitive, basically getting it into your Office format as an example. And this is what I was saying, it didn't matter at the time when we made these. So, say for example, you know, could be any. You know, say that one's incorrect. Example. So I can go bin link, create new, views, view name. So all of a sudden there's my view names matching my browser. Export, views, close, Excel, open, views. There it is there. If I had a spelling mistake at this time here, I could use spelling. example, that was incorrect spelling. Okay, so there it is there. So I could quickly even use this spell check. And then if I wish to do upper, so yes, I've only got a few views, but this you hopefully get the idea if you've got many, many views. So if I Control C that and paste, oops, paste special values. I've got that correct. Save. Okay, happy with that. Bin link, import, use to, no errors, import, and close, and hopefully fix those up accordingly. Now in addition to that, you might go, well, I also need to, say for example, my office procedure might be to do with putting the sheet number that it lands on as part of the view name. So I know this lands on sheet as in -10 and plans elevation. So opening up views 2 and I go double click, and if I go down and find sheets, I'll drop down, go and find sheet name and number that it occurs on. In this example here, it's just these two. Hopefully you can see the screen. And go OK, export, right, call it views 2 again, happy with that. Go to Excel. So in this case here, I might use, say, equals, I think it's the concentrate command, join several strings, and it might be, say, dat, comma, inverted commas, dash, inverted commas, dash, that, comma, that. Okay, and you might go, yeah, that's fine, but I need a space. So I might need to, now I recommend keeping these in a notepad file or just somewhere for handy use later. Okay, so it might be something like that. Okay, so in this case here we've only got these two to do. But you get the idea of using multiple information. So if you had to rename all your views, Control C, in this case here, paste special, values, there it is there. You can forget about that stuff over there, you can leave it. Close, import, and import, and all of a sudden they've been filled out accordingly. So again, like I was saying at the beginning, it's not a push, it's not dynamic, it's just a bit of push-pull. So obviously that's something you might do towards the end of the project, or if it's halfway through a project and the client has requested specific view names to match where it goes on sheets, whatnot. Okay, drawing revisions. Let's go back up. So that's renaming views. Yep. Drawing revisions. Okay. Depending on your system, some are using. Some are using obviously the standard Revit schedule, so when you do a full revision, as in home, is it home? Doing setting up the revisions accordingly, doing it that way. So when you do the cloud, select the cloud, fill out but there are sometimes specific times you need additional parameters to do with your project, and which is a limitation of Revit and the revisions, is you can't always pick up everything. For example, checker 2. So if you have all your sheets here, you can use BIMlink. Okay, so if I've got sheets at the moment, I'll do current number, current name, number. In this case here, I want to say fill out check by. So I've got check by, and I'm going to fill out author. It's not that, sorry, can't do author because it's not a parameter setup. That'll do for now. So in this case here, so then export, sheets 2. So you could fill out, if you went back to old school and had individual parameters for number, revision, date, drawn, checked, design, checked, verified, etc. You could use the workflow. This could be put in Excel format. Someone else could be filling out the data ready, and then you can basically pump it straight back in, and your drawings will be done. So I'll export that. Yep, done that. Close, Excel, open. Okay, so I've given this to another drafter or someone else to fill it out. It's all been filled out. Happy with that. Again, if you wish to update names here, accordingly. I might fill all that data out. Save. BIMlink. Import. Okay, it's all ready to go, so some of these should now update. Import. If I go to, say, another sheet, no one's changed. More importantly, now I've done that, here's all my sheets set up. And I've even filled out some of that data already. So that's BIMlink and just helping it with your schedules. The other advantage, obviously, being within Excel, if you have that, if you then had another transmittal, this could be your standard transmittal. You can do basically equals an example. So you can set this up to that equals. See, once it's set up, you set up for your typical projects, and then that can be, this one here can be your standard schedule that will leave the office, or your standard transmittal, I should say. Oops, haven't finished yet. Just missed a page. Bear with me. Right, that's it. So yeah, so that's probably about it, guys. That that's as I said, I could go on forever with BIMlink. Just the trick is just knowing with BIMlink, you get to things that you don't normally get to. Like there's additional parameters, there's additional information you can get to. As in like detail components is a classic. If I do detail components, like that's trying to create a schedule, if I'm going to create just a normal Revit schedule, I can't get to detail components. So for example, I'll just chuck this detail component family on and hopefully I can pick him up. Yep, so he picks it up. What you do with it obviously depends how you want to do it, but at least now all of a sudden there's options. So that's the power of Bimlink and why it's a must. If you're doing bridges, I've used an example with Lee in your Sydney office. All of these planks and piles, we sort of use Bimlink to help us produce schedules and data information and then quickly update, basically to spit out a schedule to match according to the RTA or the rail authority as required. So if you've got any questions, because I don't think the sound's great when it comes back on my end, in the chat mode, there's an area there you can type a couple of questions, or if you want, send me an email, or we'll see how we go. Any questions? You're all unmuted. I might be able to hear you
now. Thanks, Pete. That was really good.
So yeah, so hopefully it's giving you a taste to push your powers to be to buy Bimlink.
Yeah, I'm not sure how everyone found that. I mean, I'd sort of pitched that as, the first part at least, sort of basic to intermediate. Would that be a fair comment, Pete?
Yep. That's right. Like, there's heaps to do with schedules that we can go through, and I suppose the reason why this topic had come up is just, with some of the jobs I had seen in different offices, it's just making sure people use schedules to help them model more than forget about the output, actually use it in your advantage rather than running around and doing almost like AutoCAD skills, individual pieces of elements. That's really what I want to get out of it. So,
no, I think it's good because we are getting, well, at least the structural guys to do the Revit self-assessment forms. So, we can kind of pick out who doesn't think that they're great on schedules, and we can direct them to this.
Yep.
So once you've got it recorded and you send that link through, we'll, or the guys that are listening to this, once you get that link, then if you can encourage your team to use it, to have a look.
Yep. Yeah, and exactly. And when I visit the offices, if they've had a look and they're still not sure, well, at least they understand the concept, and I can sit there with them just for 10 minutes and just show them.
Well, I mean, I don't have any other questions, so I'm not sure about everyone else. It's pretty quiet out there.
Probably all asleep.
Someone fart or something.
This is only in 2012, isn't it?
Sorry, mate?
Bimlink's not 2011, it's only 2012, is that correct?
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah, bugger.
But yeah, that's the other thing with Bimlink. Like, it's got a few little glitches, so like it's not 100% perfect, but it's still a damn good start to how to communicate with the engineers and get them to help you as part of the modelling process.
Yeah, from my point of view, piles and getting the loads and stuff on there, because what generally happens here is we'll do our pile table and the engineer will do a spreadsheet where he's got a whole lot of calculations in there, and then we have to manually transfer those to the Revit schedule. So there's obviously scope for massive cock-ups. So straight away.
Yeah, well, that's right. That'll save you half a day straight up to the big poll schedule. So.
Barry's just asking how we get it. We've got Tony Beardi has put in a request to get 5 network licenses, and he's got the transport unit manager to approve it, but we need another unit manager to approve it, so I'm trying to get our one here to do that, but he hasn't yet, and I'm not sure if he's avoiding it or not, but that's the challenge, getting one more person on board, because it's charged back to the unit, which, if you ask me, is a bit of a silly way to do it. But anyway, that's what we're up against.
Yeah,
so
and it's not massive amounts of money for what it does. So.
No, it isn't. I could spend more time trying to convince people to get it than what it costs. So.
Yes, exactly.
But anyway.
That's an argument we can't win, mate.
No. But anyway, there's it's about 5k Aussie for 5 licenses. It's about a K license or something like that. Roughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just type yes if you can hear me, Baz, because I.
Oh, all right, look, thanks for that. I've got a boot. I've got lots to do, but that was really good. Enjoyed it. Fantastic.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
Right.
See you later.
Clinton, I'll just I'll save this. I'll see how big the file is, and then I'll try and get you the file over there somehow. So.
Yep. Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, mate.
Did you have anything else, or?
Did I? No.
All right. Cool. See ya.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Peter.
Cheers.